Okay, we are going to build a VR project on the Meta Quest 2, or also known as the Oculus Quest 2, with Unreal Engine 5.4.4, using macOS, Java 17, and Android Studio Flamingo. This is just a Google Doc that I use to keep track of all of my notes and configuration settings and stuff like that. And I'll share this Google Doc in the video description as well, so you can get to it. First thing we're going to do is install Java 17. We're going to use OpenJDK 17.0.6 from January 17th, 2023. You can get it from oracle.com. I'll put this link in the description so you can get to it easily. Again, JDK 17, and I am running a M series Apple Silicon processor, so we're always going to use the ARM versions of packages. So I'm going to use the macOS ARM64 DMG installer that I have highlighted here. If you're on an Intel Mac, you're going to want to get the x64 versions. Yep, just confirming I'm on an M1 chip. You can do that from the Apple icon in the upper left about this Mac and figure out which chip you have. Yep, and here we go. You can see I haven't already downloaded it once. This is a demo test, so you'll see it in here twice, but I'm going to go ahead and open it up, no big deal, and run the installer. Install for all users, and install. And I don't run as root on my computer, so I have to log in to install stuff. You may not have this step. And there is the JDK 17, and we'll talk about the path of where that's installed. Later, we'll use this path in Unreal Engine in a configuration setting in the platform section, but we'll get to that. Don't worry about that for now. What you need to do is just have Java installed, which you now have. And there it is. You may see other versions of Java in there. If you've installed them, don't worry about those. We're just going to use 17. And again, we're going to use this contents folder in Unreal Engine later on, which is why we're installing this now. Next, we're going to go get Android Studio Flamingo. This is maybe the most thorny part of this whole process. We are going to get the May 24, 2023 version of Flamingo, which is patch 2. There are multiple Flamingo releases, and we want a specific patched version. And you can get it at developer.android.com in their archive section. Again, I'll put a link to this page so you can get to it. You'll have to agree to the terms and conditions. And then you're going to see this massive list of all of the Android Studio releases. And we want Flamingo. So the way I find it is just by doing Command F for find and typing like Flam, FLA or FLAM, and you'll see it. Now you'll notice there are multiple Flamingo versions. We want the May 2024 version, not that version down below. We want the May 2024 release. And again, because I'm running an M1 processor, I'm running Apple Silicon. So I want the Android Studio version for Apple Silicon. If you're running an Intel Mac, pick the one below. And Android Studio is really like a development environment for Android developers. We aren't going to use Android Studio, the software itself, to do dev work or design work. But what we are going to do is use Android Studio to add and remove software development kits and NDKs. Those are called SDKs, and we're also going to install some NDKs and other tools, and we're going to use Android Studio to do that. So we're really downloading Android Studio as a configuration tool, not as a design or development environment. you're not going to need to learn quote unquote Android Studio. You just need to use it to get your Unreal Engine configuration set up properly. And I'll speed up this download. It's taking a while. Okay, we're going to open up Android Studio by dragging it into the applications folder. If you're new to how that works, just drag it. When they show you that type of UI, just drag it into applications. Again, because I'm not a admin user on my computer, I have to log in as an admin user to install it. Installs pretty quick. And then you can actually double click into that applications folder if you want to get to the applications directory. And here we are. And so I always just click on something and hit the A key so I can get to, or A in so I can get to Android Studio quickly. It's a good way to navigate around the Finder. Okay, we have to just confirm with macOS that we actually want to open it, even though we downloaded it from a strange source. Okay, there is Android Studio. Now, it's going to say no Android SDK found. That's fine. Go ahead and hit next. And we are going to install to users. That long string of numbers is my username, so just pretend it says Rob or whatever there. Users, my username, library, Android, SDK. I already have some old SDKs on here, which is why you're getting that little warning, but don't worry about that. We're going to talk about that library folder in a future part of this video. That library folder is hidden, so we have to unhide it in order to get to it later. But for now, just go ahead and install it in the regular old spot. You're going to see it's going to start the download of the 35 version of the API. We're not really going to use much of the 35 version of the API, but it's going to go get it anyway for us. And we'll do some tweaking of that in a little bit after the installation is done. Or sorry, after the configuration is done. You'll notice what's happening here, right, is you downloaded Android Studio, and now we're going in and actually configuring it now that it's opening up for the first time. You can go ahead and hit finish there. Okay, and now this is a strange part of Android Studio. You're in Android Studio, and what you really want is this little drop down right here. It's very strange that it's down in this more actions portion, but it is. And you want to go to SDK Manager. That's the fourth option in the drop down, SDK Manager. So we're going to manage the SDKs. Okay, this is a kind of wild UI, but I'll walk you through it. There's really two tabs up here, SDK Platforms and SDK Tools, and we are going to start on SDK Platforms. And just checking my notes here to make sure everything is cool. I say 34 here. I think we're already on 35, so I'll update the documentation to say 35, but we're unchecking 35 if it's checked, and we're going to check 12L. You'll notice I have an old install where 13 is checked. We don't want that. So again, just make sure 12L is checked and nothing else. So you don't want API 35 or anything else in this list. You just want 12L. You can see there's 34. The numbers jumped around weird for Android Studio release. Android releases, it went from 12 to 13 to like 34. But no, all you want is 12L. So we're going to go to the SDK Tools tab next. Sorry, I was just checking my interface. And what we want to do is check a box that says Show Package Details. So we're in the SDK Tools tab, and we're going to check that Show Package Details checkbox down there. And that's what it looks like unchecked. It probably looks like that for you. It's much smaller, right? And when you click Show Package Details, it's really just unfurling all of the options underneath. Okay, and again, what we want is we want 32.0.0. We don't want anything else. So again, yours might say 35. So if so, uncheck 35. If yours says 34, uncheck 34. What you want is 32. So I'm unchecking 35 here. I have an old one which is 33, and what we want, again, just triple checking, is 32.0.0. Exactly, 32.0.0, not the .1. Okay, and now we're going to scroll down many times in this list. So I'm going to update this and say keep scrolling down, because we're going to keep scrolling down a few times. So we're going to scroll down to a section called NDK side by side, and what we want is 25.1.893.7393. It's a long bunch of mouth words. But what we really want, and I already have it checked down here, but you probably don't, which is 25.1.893.7393. It's the only 25.1 release, so as long as you remember 25.1, you're checking the right thing. And we are going to scroll down even further in this list to the Android SDK command line tools latest, and what we want is version 13. And we're also going to install CMake 322 and 310. So I have the Android SDK command line tools 13 checked. And what we want is the CMake versions 3.22.1 and 3.10.2. So we have those checked. Now we're going to go to Android SDK Platform Tools, and we want to make sure that is checked. I think it already is for me. Yeah, and you'll notice I say 35.0.1, but there's already been a little bit of a release to .2, so I just updated my documentation there. Again, Android SDK Platform Tools should be checked. It may already be checked for you. If Android Emulator is checked for you, leave it checked. It's totally fine. And we are now ready to hit OK. And what's happening here that the message is telling us is it's going to delete a bunch of stuff I unchecked, and it's going to go get from the internet a bunch of stuff I did check. And we'll hit OK. This download actually goes quite a bit faster than the regular Studio install download, which I'm not sure why, but different part of the internet out there. And we'll hit finish over there, down there in the lower right-hand corner. Just a note, Android Studio is a way to compile Android applications. And because the Quest 2 really, right, is an Android phone on our face, it's a face phone, we need to build Android applications. So that's why we're doing all this Android and Java stuff. Okay, now we are going to go get the Android Games Launcher, and that will let us install Unreal Engine 5.4.4. You can get that from store.epicgames.com. You may, on your Mac, already have this app if you have used Epic Games before. If not, totally fine. Just go get the installer and download it. It's a little weird. You're getting the Epic Games Launcher in order to get Unreal Engine. Unreal Engine is owned by Epic, and they bundle them together. I'm not totally sure why, but here we are. You will need to create an account if you don't already have one with Epic Games. I don't go through that in this tutorial, but I will say this: if you pick a fake birthday, pick a birthday that makes you more than 18 years old. Otherwise, it's going to yell at you. So just make sure you pick one that says you're an adult. They do ask you for your birthday. Okay, we are running Epic Games Launcher. Takes a while to do the update. I have an account, so I don't mind this. I'm just going into my 1Password to get my actual password for the Epic Games Store. So you can use your own password manager or whatever you want to use. I'm just getting mine out of my password manager right now. So I'm copying it out of there. Closing out some lingering old windows. And you'll notice the Epic Games Launcher is behind this window. And I'll say this about the Epic Games Launcher and about Unreal Engine, is they often take a long time to load, and they don't tell you they're doing anything. So if you are thinking like, did Epic Games Launcher freeze? Did it hang? What's going on? I'll say take a few more deep breaths and wait it out a little bit and see if it comes back to life, because both Unreal and Epic Games Launcher are very prone to be working on something and not telling you. So it can be a little alarming. Okay, this is the Epic Games launcher. This is your account settings. You can go in there and like manage your account if you need to. That'll take you to the Epic Games store. But really also go into settings, which is, I clicked through that kind of fast. What you want to do is go into settings and uncheck these desktop notifications because I personally find them extremely annoying. You get a ton of game notifications and news and offers and stuff. And if you go into settings, that little gear down there, and check it, you can get rid of those. And I find that to be a much nicer experience. Okay, you have 3 tabs over here on the left. You have Store, Library, and Unreal Engine. There are 2 library tabs on this UI, which people find confusing. Whenever I say the library tab, I mean the one at the top, which is the Unreal Engine library tab, not the store library. So again, you can see it's a little bit more white, that Unreal Engine tab, which tells you we're there. And then go into the library and you'll see I have 2 projects down here. You probably don't. And your projects will be empty, and that's okay. And your engine's versions will be empty, so go ahead and hit the plus sign. Now for you, this may show up as 5.4.0. Go ahead and select it and it will automatically update to 5.4.4. It's a little bit of a weird thing. For me, it shows up as 5.4.4. Go ahead and hit install. As a warning, this install is big. It's 20 gigs, so make sure you have enough drive space. And I'm just highlighting here that where it installs. It installs into your user's home directory in a folder called Epic Games. And just as a heads up, the engine is stored in one place and your projects are stored in another. This can be confusing for people. Yeah, just as a heads up, you can see it's 17.6 gigs, just the download itself. So yeah, it's big. You can see the remaining time here, which is useful. Also, in the far upper right of the UI, you can see an installing message. And my window is a little bit too small for you to see the whole thing, but it's saying like it's 16%, 17%, 18%, 20% in there. If you widen out your Epic Games launcher UI, you can see the whole percentage there. Sorry, I didn't do that. You can also see that the little UI is filling up, like the little Unreal Engine icon is filling up a little bit to show you this. I have super sped up this process here for you. So this is at about 1,200 times faster than the regular download install time. So give yourself some time to make this happen. It could take 20 minutes or so, depending on your internet speed. Oh, a note while this is happening. Like I said, you won't have any projects, and you'll notice in this UI there's no way to actually add a project. And that's because how Unreal Engine works is if you want to create a new project, you launch the engine, and it will take you through a sort of new project configurator to do that. So it can be a little strange. Also, as you proceed, you may make a project and then want to get rid of it from this list, and there's no way to get rid of it from this list. What you have to do is you have to go delete it off your hard drive, and if you delete it off your hard drive, the project will disappear from the UI. Also a little bit basic. I guess it would be nice to be able to just remove a project from there without removing it from your drive. Okay, we're going through the verifying step. The verifying step is really just making sure that the files that the app thinks it downloaded was downloaded. And now you can launch. And you can launch either from here or from there, but don't launch yet. We have a configuration step that we need to do. Yep, again, just you won't see any projects here, but you will create one in this next step. But first, you see this little down arrow, click it, and there's a couple things to know about it. There's options, set current, remove, verify. Options is what you want to select. We need to install some extra Android stuff. Set current is a way for you, if you have multiple versions of the engines, to say what the default one is. So say you have like 4.7 and 5.4, you can set 5.4 as your current, and that will launch it by default. You can also see the way to remove the engine. Don't do that now because you'll accidentally delete it, but you can remove the engine easily there if you want to, which can save up a lot of space. So as you get a bunch of old engines on your disk, the remove option is useful to get rid of some of the older ones when you don't need them. The verify option, I don't really ever use. I have done it once as a warning. It can take an extremely long time because of what the verify step is doing is checking every single file and making sure that it's there and accurate. So it's can be quite a big audit. A long time ago, this used to take hours and hours and hours, but it has gotten faster. Okay. You want to go into options, and what we're going to do is scroll down and select Android. So we got to get 8 more gigs of stuff. So now we're up to 66.57 gigs of stuff. And again, this is because we're building for MetaQuest 2, which is an Android device. We got to go get the Android stuff. And here we go. Again, I've sped this up quite a bit just to move things along so you're not waiting. This usually takes 5 minutes or so at the most, depending on your internet speed. Okay, so now we've got 5.4.4 installed, and we've got our Android options installed. We're in pretty good shape. So I'm going to go ahead and launch the engine. And it takes a while to launch. Like I said, right now nothing is happening, and you're kind of like, okay, what's going on? But it is doing stuff. And while that's happening, let's go ahead and talk about hidden files. We need to unhide a library folder in macOS. And just as a heads up, there's 2 library folders in macOS, and this confuses a lot of people a lot of times. There's one in your user account, and there's one in system. Ironically, the system library folder is not really hidden, but the one in your user account is. And so for me, it's users and then my user ID and then library. And if you were to go there on a fresh Mac install, this library folder would not exist. But you need to get to it. So there's a way to get to it. The first way to do it is to go to your home directory. And now many people don't know how to get to their home directory. I was just there. But I have this little thing I install in my Finder to be able to navigate up and down the folder structure, but people typically don't have that. And there is a keyboard shortcut you can use, which is Command plus Shift plus H. So hold down all 3 of those at the same time, Command Shift H, and that will actually throw you into your home directory, which is right here. And now you'll notice I have a library folder right there, right? You can see it, and that's because I have unhidden it. But I'm going to show you how that works. So the thing you have to do now is, go to View, Show View Options, and you see that little Show Library Folder checkbox. It is checked, so the library folder is showing up. If you uncheck it, it will disappear. There it goes, and that's the default state. So if you check it, Show Library Folder, that will appear. Now, here's the thing that's a little weird is that Show Library Folder checkbox only appears in your home directory. So if you're in some other directory and you like a right click in the Finder, that doesn't show up. So very odd thing. Okay, now here's a wonky thing. Unreal is trying to launch, but now it has a problem because you haven't yet agreed to the Xcode license agreement. Unreal Engine uses Xcode, which is the default IDE for Apple. You may also get a message that you don't have Xcode. So if you don't have it, you need to go get it from the macOS App Store. But if you do have it, you just need to agree to the license agreement. So what it's telling you is to use the terminal to agree. And the terminal app is inside Applications, inside a Utilities folder. And you see I've opened it up here. And I realized a problem that I have. That sudo command that it's asking you to run requires that you run as a root user. So some people will be able to do that and some won't. So what I did is instead, and if you're not allowed to run sudo on your Mac, is just open Xcode. It's in your applications folder once you've downloaded it, and it will pull up this license agreement checkbox. So I just went ahead and opened Xcode, and you can see right here is the license agreement I need to agree to. And if I click agree here, this problem will go away. Again, just to recap, if you don't have Xcode, you're going to need to go get it, and that's at the Mac OS App Store. If you do already have Xcode, but it's updated in the background or something, which is what happened to me, you need to agree to the new agreement. So this is just me clicking into Xcode after agreeing, and everything is fine. So once that happens, you'll now have the things you need installed for a successful VR build for macOS. But you do have to go into Unreal and flip a bunch of settings. So we're going to do that next. Excuse me, just a heads up. Always when you run a new engine for the first time, the initialization process can take quite some time because it's going through and initializing stuff. It's, doing shader stuff. There's all this junk happening. So you can see here, I've got 5,250 shaders to compile. So I drastically sped this up so you don't have to wait while my 5,250 shaders are compiling. Okay. This is just macOS saying like, hey, are you sure you want to Unreal this application to access the files in your documents folder? You definitely do. So definitely hit allow, otherwise Unreal is going to be unhappy. Okay, and so we're creating a new project, and what you want to do is always create a games type of project. Those on the left are kind of categories of the different types of projects you can make. Games is what you want, and you always want virtual reality. So games and virtual reality. You could pick other stuff if you're making other types of stuff like handheld AR apps or other kinds of things, but we always want virtual reality. And go ahead and leave starter content checked, especially if you're new to this type of work. Look at this project location down here. Notice where your project is going to be stored. It's going to be stored in your documents folder inside of a folder called Unreal Projects. And here is project name. It's very important right now not to just get too excited and hit OK. You want to name your project something useful because you cannot rename it. So you should pick something that's useful to you or evocative or something that feels inspiring. Because again, you cannot change this project name, which is annoying, but the truth. So I picked a very boring name here, VR Unreal Engine 544, just because I do a lot of engine testing. So I always kind of want to know where I started, what engine I started with. But you may, want to pick something cool like, Super Game 9000 or something like that. Again, always good to know where your files are located in all this stuff because you'll very often have to go in there and dig through your file system to get stuff. Okay, we are launching our project, and again, we're going to go through a shader compilation step. So I've sped that up drastically because we have thousands of them again to recompile. Okay, you are now in Unreal Engine. Welcome. It took a while, but here we are. Just a few things about Unreal Engine that are worth digging into. I'll just give a little survey. Over here you have the outliner, and the outliner is a way that you can see all of your stuff inside the viewport. If you click something in the outliner, like one of these cubes, it'll light up in the viewport. This is the console window. This is super important when you're doing builds. The console window is there to tell you all the little details of what's happening in the engine, and especially what's happening in the build. You'll notice you're seeing some like amber, orange, yellow items here. Those again are warnings. You see those warnings? Those are just warnings. So the reason this list is showing up is because I think I changed my audio interface, and so you can see that audio mixer platform interface timeout is it's sitting there waiting for the interface to kick back in, and so it's throwing a warning every 5 seconds. So you can just ignore that. If you see amber stuff in your console log, typically you don't have to worry about it too much when you're doing a build, but if you see a red line show up in your console log, you've got a problem, and it is very likely your build will fail. So, but those red lines are super useful because you can Google on those error messages and find out what the problem is. Or if you have a guess what the problem is, there you go. So again, back into the outliner, you can see here, if you click something in the viewport, it will show up in the outliner. If you click something in the outliner, it'll show up in the viewport. Your outliner is also how you assign properties and stuff. The Platforms tab up here is very important for the build. It's how you do a build. We'll be spending a lot of time in the Android section of this Platforms dropdown. and we always want Android ASTC. And just above that, you'll see there's package, project, and cook content. We're going to almost always package the project. Package includes the cook step plus some other stuff, the packaging stuff. So package is what we'll commonly use. For now, we're going to just use project setting, development, but there'll be times when you may want to do shipping or debug game or something like that. But for now, we're just going to do that. You'll see these two grayed out sections here around SDK management. You can ignore those for now. We're going to do a more manual, detailed SDK configuration stuff. So you can ignore this stuff for now. Device manager is a good thing to know about. That tells you, what devices are connected. So if you're doing VR work and you have your headset connected, it should show up in device manager. Also, if you're ever doing something like mobile work or something in Unreal Engine, you'll see your phones and stuff connected there. Okay, let's go to project settings. This is where a ton of configuration stuff is for Unreal, and we'll be spending a lot of time in project settings. So always just really keep in mind where that is so you can get to it. And you'll see there's a ton of stuff up here. It starts with the project stuff, but if you scroll up and down, you'll see all sorts of other things. We're going to spend a lot of time in editor eventually, but for now, don't worry about that too much. What we're going to do for builds is spend a lot of time in the platform section over here. And you get to platforms by scrolling down. It's almost at the bottom. It's sort of more than halfway. So go ahead and click on the Android section of that. You can ignore this giant red warning. Again, we're going to do some more specific SDK and NDK configuration that's going to make that red warning irrelevant. So we are going to update that minimum SDK version and the target SDK version. Right now it's at 26 and 28 for me. It might be at something else for you. We are going to set the minimum SDK version to 30 and the target to 32. Again, the minimum to 30 and the target to 32. So we have two little updates to make there, 3.0 and 3.2. I think I set mine to 28 just as a test, but 3.0 does work, so don't worry about it if you put 3.0 in there. Okay. Package game data inside APK, we want that checkbox, and here's why. We need a single APK file with all of our stuff in it for the Quest. So by checking that, you will create that. Eventually, you may get to a super fancy game that's really huge and you have to deal with other data files and stuff, but for now, check that box. Okay, now we're going to go to the Android SDK section of platforms, which is just a few items down. If you look to your left, you'll see Android SDK. And I already have some configuration settings in here, but we're going to pretend like all this stuff is blank just so you can type in the right stuff. And you'll notice some of the stuff in here is not correct. And so we're going to fix that. So just imagine this is blank. Okay, the first thing we're going to do, right, is we're going to path out to the Android SDK, which is what we installed earlier. And the way to do that is to go all the way out to your users folder and then pick your users folder. And then here is our friend, the library folder, which would right now be just not present if we didn't unhide it. So this is why we went through that step of unhiding it. So go into library. I've already forgotten my path here, so I'm just going back to my Google Doc to check. Yeah, and then we go into Android and we go into SDK. And we hit open. So again, that's users and then your username, library, Android, SDK. You could type that in, but I encourage you to not do that and to use the 3 dots instead, because one typo will make your life miserable. You'll wonder why everything is breaking, and you won't remember that you accidentally put a space in there, a capitalization problem, or whatever. Okay, so now we're going to path out to the NDK, and the way to do that, again, is to go to users, your home folder, library, Android, SDK, which is the path we had before, and now we're going to go a little bit further in. We're going to go to NDK and then the 25.1 option, which is, again, what we installed back in Android Studio. We picked that NDK back when we were setting it up. Go ahead and hit open. Now we have the Java path that we have to go get. You can see here this path is an old Java version, and we're not running that anymore. Yours, again, might be blank. We installed Java 17, right? And Java 17 is in the other library folder. You'll remember I said there's 2 different library folders, one inside your home folder and also one that's just off your, like at the base level of your hard drive. And that place is where your Java is installed. So you're going to go to that library folder right off your disk, go to Java, Java Virtual Machines, and there's the JDK 17, and you're going to select the contents home directory. So library, Java, Java Virtual Machines, JDK 17, contents home. Now we have to update the SDK API, the SDK API level and the NDK API level. Latest is what you want as the SDK API level. And the NDK API level should be Android-32. Now remember to put Android-32 in there, not just 32. You want Android-32. Okay, we are ready, I think, to do a package project. But first, let's go into SideQuest and make sure that we have good connectivity to our headset. You don't need this headset connectivity to actually do the packaging, but I think it's a good idea to make sure that your headset exists and that you have good connectivity to it, because what always happens is you get so excited that a package happened, you install the package game, and then you wonder why it's failing, and it's because you forgot to plug your headset in, or the headset went to sleep, or whatever it is. So it's always a good idea, I think, to check and make sure that your headset is communicating with your laptop successfully. And the way I do that is I use SideQuest. And what's happening here, right, is I have SideQuest loaded, and it's not detected, and that's because my headset was turned off. So I'm going to go ahead and figure that out, and it should go from not detected to either an amber warning, and that amber warning could be something like, hey, there's a headset detected, but I don't have a trust relationship with it yet, or there's something weird happening, so you have to fix that. Again, I plugged in my headset here, and you can see the Mac is just saying, are you sure you want to connect this freaky thing to your computer? And the answer is yes. So now it's plugged in and on, but it's not authorized. So now you have to, by where that says allow in headset, you have to go into the headset and say, yes, I definitely want to always allow my headset to work with this computer. And when you check that box, it will turn green over there on the left. You'll notice in your headset there's 3 different buttons you could check. One is don't allow, which you don't want. You want to allow it. But you'll notice there's the allow, and then there's the always allow. And what I always want is the always allow. I just always did always allow, and then what I did is I just unplugged and replugged in my headset to get it to reconnect, and now I have the green light. So if you have the green light, you know at least that USB communications between your laptop and your headset is good, right? It doesn't mean that your code is perfect or your design is perfect or whatever, but it does at least mean that your Oculus Quest can communicate to your laptop and back and forth. Okay, so now we are ready to package our project. We're going to go to Platforms, Android, again, because this Quest is an Android thing, and we're going to hit Package Project. Now we're going to get this warning. It's only going to come up once, and it's going to say, hey, the SDK for Android is not installed properly. Don't let this scare you. It is installed properly. It's just Unreal Engine doesn't know it yet. So you have to hit continue for that. And now you're ready to package your project. And when you package your project, you're going to get some files created. And so you want to make a folder for yourself to where your finally packaged project is. So just do new folder. And I always call mine Quest 2. It's a good, easy way to remember, oh, there's the files for my Quest 2. It's going to build an Android ATSC folder inside this Quest 2 folder. Don't let that scare you. And now we'll be able to go into that Quest 2 folder when the build is done and go install the project and check it out. So here is our build step. It takes a very long time. Depends on how fast your computer is, how much RAM you have, etc. But so get ready for it, but it's going to take a while. Now notice a couple things in this log file. We're noticing that we helped that Android-32. Do you see that? That's a thing we set up, right, in our configuration. You'll also see some stuff like paths and stuff that we set up that it uses, or NDK versions that it uses, et cetera, et cetera. So you'll notice some stuff on the log file here that are things that we did, which is good. You'll see in here there's things come up where it says like failed to find game directory, that kind of thing. Don't worry about that for now. Again, you're not getting red warnings. That's just a message related that says like, hey, I was looking for a thing, didn't find it, and maybe the engine has to do something else to get around it, but it's not a problem. It's just letting you know what's going on. Again, this takes quite some time, so I'll speed up all the packaging steps so we can get to the very end. One thing you'll see here, do you see cooked packages 316, packages remain 567, total 883? This is a useful kind of thing that shows up. It's telling you what the status is. So it has 883 steps to do, I guess is the best way to put that. And it's telling you how many it's done, 391, and how many remaining, 492. So for this step, you can see that it's got, again, 883 things to do, and it's about halfway through. Not quite. So this can be a good way for you to kind of check in on the log if you're, sending emails to someone or checking your phone or whatever while this is happening. You can kind of get a sense of how long something's going to take based on how many cooked packages are remaining and have happened. Okay, and we have reached the end. You will see down here, packaging command completed, archive command started, the archive happened, and archive command completed. Build successful, that's great. And no red error messages in there, which is also awesome. If you scroll up a little bit, you'll see different things like writing shell script for install, for uninstall, and we're going to look at those right now. So you'll remember we made a folder called Quest2, and we made that in our Documents, Unreal Projects, VRUE544. And if you go into Quest2, you'll see an Android ASTC folder. Like I mentioned, the build creates that for you. And if you go inside there, you'll see 3 files. You'll see the install script, the uninstall script, and your actual APK file. So we have an APK file, and now we need to test it. So let's first check SideQuest to make sure everything is cool. Yes, we have a green light, and just to doubly confirm that, I'm going to unplug the headset. Notice it says not detected, and plug it back in, and we've got detected. So we're all good there. We should be able to copy the file over successfully using the script. And so let's go back to the Finder. And we're going to run this install script. This install script is a little wonky. You're going to see what looks like an error message at first, but it's not. So I'll walk you through that. Okay, so we're running install. And here where it says failure, notice the line above it. It says uninstalling existing application. Failures here can almost always be ignored. That's because it's trying to uninstall if it had a version before, and it doesn't because we just made it. So you can ignore that because it's a brand new app, so there is no previous version. And now you can see it's performing a streamed install. Now notice it's not done yet, right? It's still going, performing streamed install right here. Now it is done. And you can see here it says installation successful, saving session completed. So we are done. So I'm going to close out that window and a bunch of other little remaining windows that don't matter. And we're going to take a look on our headset and see what we got. Okay. Let's see here. Okay, so to check where our app is, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go home. You can use the Oculus button to go home and open, we're going to open up the library app. The library app is that little grid of white squares. Go ahead and click on that. You're going to see you're in library, and then you're in applications. And what we want to do is we want to go from this all drop down to this unknown sources drop down. You'll notice there's a 1 in here, and that is a good sign because that means that there's one app in here, and it is probably ours. As a heads up though, unknown sources this summer and beyond has been really unreliable in its count. Sometimes it'll say 0 when there's something in there. Sometimes it'll say 3 when there's nothing in there. It doesn't update it or something correctly. So anyway, let's go to unknown sources. And there it is. There's our VRUE 544 that I named. Your name is probably different, but here it is. And just as a quick heads up, you see those little 3 dots here. That is how you uninstall the app when you want to uninstall it. But we're going to run it. So let's go ahead and just click on it and run it. And that's a good sign. I'm seeing the Unreal Engine logo. And we are now in our VR test app. And I'm going to go over and see if I can grab the gun. I'm just out of my boundary, so I may have to move around to get this to work. Oh yeah, oh, I picked it up and I dropped it, of course. Let me try it again. Pick up. There we go. Okay, cool. I have the gun. I can now squeeze the trigger and shoot tennis balls all I want. You'll notice they'll go over the wall. You'll notice they're not bouncing off the wall. They're just being absorbed. We can shoot things that have physics on them, like these cubes, and they'll fly around. The ball will also roll, but these cubes don't move. These cubes don't move, and these do, and this is very rewarding to do. And we can use the joystick to teleport in, reading some spatial audio. Notice you can hear the fire now when you're close to it, which is cool. And the fire sound changes. And that is our VR test project. We did it. And we're back. And you did it. You just installed Java, installed Android Studio, got Android Studio configured correctly, created an Epic account, installed Unreal Editor 544, configured that correctly, made a project, built the project, deployed the project to your headset, and just experienced it in your headset. It's a lot, but you did it. That's all the steps that it takes. Pat yourself on the back. It is a long slog, but now you are set up. Congratulations, and I'll see you later.